There I was, in a bar, sipping on some whiskey, reflecting on my adventures across the Mojave. It's been a long journey, and Otter needs to relax. But then I overheard two NCR soldiers talking about a certain Corporal White. Apparently, Mr. White had gone missing while investigating a water shortage. Sounds like a job right up my alley. Well, I'm not an NCR soldier, and I have no desire to live in the NCR. I am in their good graces. I went over to Camp McCarran to talk to Carrie Boyd. She's a good friend of mine. I helped her interrogate a Legion Centurion a while back. So I questioned her about Mr. White, and she told me that he's an aspiring ranger. She tells us that he was a good man, but he had some extracurricular activities going on at Gomorrah, as many people do. So she sent me off to try and find Mr. White. Now, the first place to go look was obviously his living quarters. So we headed on over to the terminal of Camp McCarran to go see if we could find anything in his locker. And, well, who would have thunketh? Yes, we did. Inside his locker, we found a journal, which read, I pulled the log from the East Pump Station computer for the last week. Looking back over the past several weeks, the times are roughly consistent. There's definitely something going on. Water shouldn't even be going over to the west side, and yet the log says otherwise. I know I'm onto something. With that, we can see that the cisterns and west side have several entry logs. So, Corporal White was definitely onto something, and perhaps he was too clever for his own good. After that, we headed on over to Gomorrah to confront Dazzle, a very popular escort that was frequented by Corporal White. And as luck would have it, Dazzle proves to be pretty useful. She tells us that he used to talk a lot about the water, some of the farms east of the Strip. While she wasn't interested, she didn't really care, it was his money. She also tells us of a farmer named Bascom, who was having some problems with the NCR. So, we have our next lead. And of course, those farms that Dazzle is talking about east of the New Vegas Strip are the NCR Sharecropper Farms. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here. Welcome back to the Unexplored Mojave. Now, if you're like me, the NCR Sharecropper Farms are always just kind of a fast travel point in the early game. I pass this location all the time. I never pay it any mind. It's just a giant farm. And I've never really looked into investigate it or do anything with it. So for a long time, I never made a video about it. Just sitting here as I walk past it, time and time and time again. So it's about time we actually give some attention to the NCR Sharecropper Farms. And as I've already said twice, it is east of the New Vegas Strip. It's right south of Gunrunners, just north of Camp McCarran, firmly within NCR territory. As we approach, we see a sign, Sharecropper Farms, no trespassing. Now, within the Sharecropper Farms, we have several greenhouses and then one permanent building. Now, that permanent, structure over there, that house, is actually the barracks. And we can actually enter all of the greenhouses, and I have to say, I am thoroughly impressed with all of the greenhouses. They're all fairly unique. This greenhouse has honey mesquite, and other greenhouses have different things going on in them. And then this greenhouse over here is growing maize. Now, I do have to say, the only weird thing about these greenhouses is sometimes you can take the vegetables and stuff within it, and sometimes you can't. So I don't know why that is, or why they programmed it like that, but who knows, who cares, it doesn't really matter. And in some of the greenhouses, you can see that they're still setting up everything for the, planting or the farming. Now, inside the greenhouse next to Camp McCarran, I was actually quite impressed with all of the effort that went into here. We have these little light bulbs above the plants, and we can actually pick the maize and the pinto beans, and everything in here we can take, oddly enough. I don't know why sometimes it's considered stealing, but I just really thought this was really cool looking, and I've never seen anything like this in Fallout New Vegas. If you guys know of any other farms or greenhouses like that in the game, please post them in the comments section below. I just thought it was really cool. And then real quick, heading over to the barracks, which is the only permanent shelter or housing in the area. This is where the farmers and soldiers sleep. We can find some loot inside. Over here we can find a Chinese Army Special Ops training manual. However, it is considered stealing, so make sure you are hidden when you take it, but that'll increase your sneak skill, which is, pretty darn good, especially in Fallout New Vegas. Then over here on this counter, there is a Sunset Sarsaparilla Star bottle cap, so go ahead and pick that bad boy up. And then we can continue on with our quest. So to continue, we need to talk to Trent Bascom, who Dazzle mentioned. He's just a simple farmer here, and he tells us that there's a water shortage and that the NCR is not helping out. And we can learn a lot here about the NCR's kind of incompetence, but that's a discussion for a later day. But anyways, he tells us that White was investigating the water shortage and that he was asking him questions and pulling records from the computer. However, Bascom tells us he's just a simple farmer. He doesn't know much about computers and that stuff, and that we should go talk to Romanowski. Now, Romanowski is working at the Sharecropper Farms. He is their protection. And if we ask him about Corporal White, he tells us that he's currently solving the mystery of the great water shortage. However, Romanowski does not believe him, which is quite foolish, and he tells us that he went over to Westside in order to talk to Tom Anderson. So, we have our next lead. And this takes us to the Casa Madrid apartments. You'll never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. However, living inside is Tom Anderson, and for the most part, Anderson initially comes across as a pretty stand-up guy. He wants to help out people, and he's a member of the Followers of the Apocalypse. However, upon questioning him, if you have 6 intelligence, you can quickly learn a very dark secret, that Mr. Anderson actually killed Corporal White when Corporal White started asking questions. Now, if you don't have 6 intelligence, you're going to have to follow a man named Hector and find out where he's getting his water, and this will lead you to more information about Corporal White's disappearance. Now, once we know this information, there's several ways we can go about it. Now, the reason Anderson killed White was because White would tell the NCR what's happening and cut off Westside's water supply, potentially endangering everyone in the town. However, on the other hand, murder is never acceptable, and Anderson should pay for his crimes. So with that, we have a few options. We can either side with Anderson, we can either kill Anderson and take justice into our own hands, or we can convince Anderson to turn himself in. We will not tell the NCR about the water problem, and the reason for killing that we make up is that Anderson and White had a dispute over Dazzle at the Gomorrah. Pretty smart. And if you can't tell, I went with the latter option, deciding to kind of cooperate with Westside, but to still turn in Anderson for his crimes. Now, I wanted to highlight, this is why I really love Fallout New Vegas and its many quests. This is a quest that is not so black and white. Yes, killing people is always wrong. However, there is a good reason why Anderson is trying to help out Westside and the people there. You know, they need water too. It's a very complicated issue, and it's not so straightforward. There's a lot of nuance, and I really appreciate that about Fallout New Vegas' narratives. And after completing the quest, which is called the White Wash, we can head on over to the jail area where we can find Anderson. Unfortunately, Anderson's dialogue doesn't change at all from before he is arrested, which I thought was quite disappointing. Kind of an oversight by the developers, possibly. And then within this chest, which is confiscated goods, we now have access to it for completing the quest. However, there's nothing that great inside of it. So you know what? Yeah, fuck you too, NCR. I'm glad that Westside's stealing all your water, dicks. And there you have it, the NCR Sharecropper Farms. This unassuming location actually has a lot going on. Whether it's the surprising amount of detail in the greenhouses, or a pretty cool quest that is heavily nuanced. I actually really appreciate this area now. It's pretty cool. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Mojave. If you have any recommendations for future location, future area, please post them in the comments section below. And as always, until next time.